Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Alison Herft toko ingoa. No mai, haere mai. Welcome, everybody. We're really privileged to have so many leaders and guests here with us today. And we welcome you all and are glad you'll be able to join us on this beautiful day and this special event. My name's Alison Herft, and I am the manager of the Member Program and Consumer Decision Making Program at the Sustainable Business Council. So we're here today to share our insights and findings about what the good life means to New Zealanders and introduce you to the Good Life 2.0 Playbook New Zealand, which has been created in partnership with Colmar Brunton. In our Consumer Decision Making Program, which I lead, over time, we've brought the latest research and thought leadership from New Zealand and international experts to members. We've tried to keep an eye on the emerging issues and trends that would help members stay at the leading edge of understanding shifting consumer expectations. But a little while ago, Alistair Davis, the CEO of Toyota New Zealand, talked with us about how they wanted to evolve their brand positioning so that they could have better alignment between the company's values, its sustainability actions, and their customers' vision of a more sustainable society. We talked about how businesses exist for their customers, not the other way around. And there's a huge need to always adapt to keep up with the constant shift in consumer expectations. Alistair said they wanted a much wider lens on who their consumers are, what they care about, what a good life looks like and feels like for them, and for a modern, diverse society in New Zealand. And the redefining the good life movement that's been happening globally had given him and his team insight into how living well in a sustainable way can look different for many people. And it also gave credence to the idea that a lot more people are seeking this change than was once thought, or that we often see through traditional media and market research. They could see that others needed to be a part of this change. Their senior management, marketing teams, creative agencies, they all needed to work together to explore the business opportunities that come with seeking a more sustainable society and having a better consumer connection. So that conversation started a journey which led to the Good Life 2.0 Playbook New Zealand. So this playbook is an evidence-based, people-centred blueprint that will help bring the consumer in the room when you're shaping your strategy. It's not here to help you sell your sustainable products. It's here to help you evolve your brand story to exist in a reality that your consumers live in, to meet people where they're at. It can also help you to see where there's consistency or tensions between your business strategies and brand messaging. And while doing this, you're also able to play a part in shaping a desire for a lifestyle that just happens to be more sustainable. So this work was originally inspired by the version done by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development in partnership with Herft, which they did for the US market. And that was designed around the question, can marketers sell a better world? So as we've developed this Playbook New Zealand with many of our members, which we call our pioneer group, we got feedback that there could be a wider scope of application for this New Zealand Good Life 2.0 work. So we've designed our tool, or our members' tool, to inspire brand and marketing teams, along with their creative agencies, CEOs, customer insights and HR leads, to look at how you can work together to show a newer vision of the good life in your brand communications and in your culture. And why are we focusing on this area in the first place? Why has this been such a priority for SBC? Well, consumer expectations and demands are shifting so fast, it's increasingly difficult for businesses and for government and other institutions to keep up with these changes and just know who the consumer is. Through external research, member conversations, and our all-member survey, we know that this issue is one of the toughest, if not for some, the top-ranked issue for their business now and into the next 2 to 5 years. And this brings uncertainty. Without being confident in who our consumers are and what they want now and in the near future, how can you know where to invest your resources, and how can you know whether your strategies are going to be effective? It also affects how you'll be able to anticipate the trends and big issues that will affect you and your supply chain, and your ability to address problems when they do happen in a way that doesn't come across as false. And there's just too much evidence now that the idea of demonstrating a good life as one that's about material wealth is increasingly being rejected. So while the 20th century version of consumerism saw people defining their status via their belongings, today's consumers are much more likely to chase different signifiers of status that are around experiences and experiences that are easier to share with others. And this is backed up by all sorts of research. They've got international research on this, as well as Lion's Future sociability work. We've got ICA's cultural codes that came out last night. We've got True has been looking at cultural codes and attitudes as well. And even in government decision-making, wellbeing indicators are being put on a more of a level playing field along with other economic indicators too. So what advantages are there for your brand when you create a better connection with consumers? And what happens when your brand takes on board that more New Zealanders want to live in a sustainable way than is being talked about in traditional media? Well, you'll have a more integrated approach to evolving your brand story over time. If you have a better sense of what is true for customers and fits with their reality, you'll also have a means to show that your brand has their interests in mind. And increasingly, you'll be able to show that not only are you able to, that you're not only thinking about making their lives better, but also the lives of those around them. And don't forget that you're consumers too. Everybody in this room, everybody in SBC membership, everyone within a business has their own view on what living well means. So this playbook gives us all the opportunity to support the well-being of our own people within our own workplaces as well, and thinking about what their vision of a happier work and home life for themselves and their communities looks like. And why do we need to reframe the good life? What is the 2.0? And what is it about the good life that's been promoted as a mainstream aspiration for decades that we need to shift away from? Well, for a start, the traditional vision of the good life as one where material goods define status and happiness is having much more negative impacts on society and the environment than positive ones. And attempts to flip the balance on these impacts purely through purchasing decisions just isn't enough. There are amazing innovations in resource use, packaging, supply chain systems, and we're really lucky to work with a lot of businesses who are at the leading edge of that. But this alone won't get a better life for many New Zealanders. So when thinking about reframing the good life, we need to consider that you can't buy a sustainable lifestyle. It must be lived on an everyday level. And that can mean different things to different people, but the main areas of impact are where we live and work, what and how we eat, and how we get around. And there are multiple innovations in all these areas that can enhance people's desire for low impact lifestyles that are developed in a way that consumers actually want and enjoy. Business growth can still occur and consumers can still buy things, but this could be achieved within a system that embraces smarter consumption over excessive consumption. And it also takes pressure off individuals who sometimes will feel like living more in a more sustainable way is going to come at a cost that they just can't afford. So this is part of the bigger picture. Everyone in this room will have seen evidence from everywhere that we can't sustain our current level of resource use. We're demanding more from nature than ecosystems can regenerate. So in thinking, using this Playbook data and how thinking about what the Good Life 2.0 means to your business, you can start to think about where in the pipeline will your business look to change course so that it's providing a means for people to live in a way that allows for living better, smarter and healthier. And you can start to question things such as, will your customers perceive your products and services as freeing up time that they'd prefer to be spending elsewhere? Or are they going to perceive it as something that wastes their time? Is it going to enable them to do something in an easier way? Or is it going to make it harder and cause some anxieties? So there's always all the different innovations in your systems that you can use this for. And while shifting consumer expectations are one of the toughest challenges for business, so too is adapting to other disruptions. So those businesses who understand what a good life looks like for New Zealanders, that just happens to be more sustainable, will also get insight into how they can adapt to meet challenges in other areas, such as climate change effects, technological disruption, supply chain shocks, and demographic shift. So how can you be a part of it? Where do you start and where do you go? Well, we all know that brands have the power to rethink the world that they present to their customers. You can present a single vision of a present, not a future, that is more in line with what it really means to live well. Forward-looking brands can use the playbook to check the cultural integrity of their messaging. And businesses that do this thoughtfully and meaningfully will be leaders in creating a positive and exciting future where sustainable lifestyles are accessible to all New Zealanders, and it can turn up in different ways. It doesn't have to be one size fits all. So thinking about how to check the cultural integrity of your brand messaging, you can think about, does it meet consumers where they actually are? Can you be confident that your communications around your organisation's sustainability pathway, in which you're saying that you care about a healthy society and people and the environment, can you be confident that that's all based on firm foundations and truly reflects your organisation's values, purpose and behaviour? And you'll be able to identify across the pipeline how you can better achieve product design and supply chain innovation. Look at all the ways that you can work with your customers to further innovate your products. And look at how you can reach those audiences in a truly collaborative way that will allow them to see that you're genuinely interested in finding ways to reflect and enhance their desire to lead lifestyles that are better for themselves and for the communities around them. Can you look at working in a pre-competitive space with others in your industry sector to raise the trust and credibility of a whole category of goods and services? So don't forget that a while ago, SBC did some research with Horizon, and we found that 1 in 5 people rejected an entire category of goods because they just couldn't find information they trusted about it. So there's industry and sector level work that this can be used for as well. And think about what happens if you don't do this. What if your brand behaviour and communications keeps having a one-way conversation with consumers and keeps pushing outmoded signals of a good life about being part of having bigger or more stuff? Are you then part of the problem of keeping the pressure on consumers to keep up? We've got the housing crisis, increasing cost of living, anxiety and mental health issues across the population. And there's a really big need to look at how your brand can take these pressures off consumers, or at the very least, not exacerbate them and alienate people in the process. So we can start today by talking about how we can show ourselves and our customers that a good life can have the same highlights and positive ones as a sustainable one. I won't talk through this slide, but just to show the kind of data we'll work through later and what's in there. These are the 7 happiness mindsets and the 16 moments that matter to New Zealanders. So what you can see here and throughout the playbook, it's all based on people-generated content. It came from photo diaries from a broad range of New Zealanders. And quotas were set so that the diary samples were nationally representative in terms of age, gender, household income and ethnicity. Through this work, we identified the 16 moments that matter, such as taking a break or maintaining our homes, and we also captured the perceptions of what makes New Zealanders happy, such as attainment or community builders. When we started this research, there was a sense that what people said made them happy would correlate really closely with what a good life looks and feels like. We've found that to be not quite the case. And so Grant Bell will unpack this a little bit more about where the intersections and differences are. And one key thing that we took from this, which we'll work through, and Grant will unpack it more, is you really can't assume anything. There are a lot of assumptions we make about our demographics, target market, and we've got the data here that really dives deeper into that, just for us to check our assumptions and see not only are we talking to people that we think exist, that we think this is what they value, but who are we missing and who are we ignoring or who are we alienating by continuing things a certain way. when we go through the workshop, we'll talk through these ideas for application further. But I just wanted to flag 3 sets of types of categories just as a starter. And the kinds of things that we're looking to start off with you today is things such as, would you start by checking whether the codes and signifiers in your brand communications would authentically resonate with your target demographic? Or are you able to coordinate strategies better across the workplace? And is there a way to get out of silo planning to achieve this? Or can you use it to check whether there's alignment or not between your marketing and sustainability strategies in terms of which consumer are you talking to? Are the different people in the workplace, do they have the idea of who the consumer is? And we'll talk through that much more later on today. And in a second, when Grant talks through the data and its interpretations, I'd just like you to have a couple of things in mind. So while he's going through it all, think about where in the pipeline this might be helpful to start off with. Think about we've got some creative agencies here today, so think about what the first step would be about approaching a client about this, and for others about how would you talk to your creative agency about this. Is there something in here that you will think might be useful to start off when you're talking to the board? Is anybody about to embark on a refresh of a brand that they might want to start seeing where this can turn up? Or is this where you can look at how consumers experience your brand and look about how you can turn your brand into social currency? So keep this and any other ideas in mind. And without further ado, I hand it over to Grant.